With Sony's legacy consoles continuing to age, and now Sony shutting off PlayStation Network services for PSP this summer, we, here at Gaming Bolt, are trying to do our part in making sure that some of the PSP's better games are not lost to time. And if you still have your PSP and are curious about some games that you might have missed, this is the list for you. Keep in mind, many of these games are playable on the Vita, but not all, so keep an eye on that if that's how you want to play them. Before we go ahead, a quick request. We upload new videos every single day, and your subscription matters a lot. So, please consider subscribing and enabling all notifications by clicking the bell icon. With that out of the way, let's begin. 1. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. If you want more of the world of Final Fantasy VII, look no further than Crisis Core. On its own, it's an excellent JRPG for the PSP, which is saying a lot, as there are tons of other great JRPGs on that system. But in the context of the Final Fantasy franchise, it also holds up surprisingly well among other games in the series. Combat is a bit of a departure with a somewhat less precise slot machine mechanic that might not immediately be to everyone's taste, but it's worth giving a chance for how great the game's story is and how well it fits into the events before Final Fantasy VII. 2. Burnout Legends. It's hard to complain about Burnout, and as a result, it's hard to have much of a problem with Burnout Legends, as it mostly serves as a best-of type of game that focuses on the better elements of Burnout 3 Takedown and just puts them on the PSP. You might have more fun with the bigger games on the PS2, as they do have more of that content, but as a bite-sized version of the best from the series, you really can't go wrong with Burnout Legends. Fun fact, this is one of the many PSP games that will work beautifully on your Vita, so regardless of which one you have, this is definitely one to pick up. 3. Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories. Much like how Crisis Core builds on the lore of Final Fantasy VII, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories builds on the lore of Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Which is to say, on its own, it might not be the most fulfilling experience in the series, but as a companion experience to Vice City on the PS2, it makes a lot of sense for anyone who's a fan of that game to grab this one, as it features basically all of the things you liked about Vice City, just in bite-sized portions. The one little analog of the PSP will, of course, never feel as good as the dual sticks of the PS2, but the PSP does a really good job of handling camera controls nevertheless, all things considered. 4. Ratchet & Clank Size Matters. While many PSP offshoots of major PlayStation franchises feel like they're a little bit watered down, Size Matters does not really have that problem. Ratchet & Clank is a franchise that was really big in 2007, and the art style is perfect for handheld devices. As a result, this game feels more like a canon sequel to the previous games than it does an optional handheld diversion. The game has plenty of weapons, space combat, and arena battles that all feel like they're right out of one of the PS2 games, which should be about all you need to know if you're familiar with the series and looking for something to play on your PSP. 5. Persona 3. Persona has certainly come a long way to get where it is with Persona 5, so comparing that game to any of its predecessors might lead to some underwhelming results. But that's not because the past games were bad, it's just because Persona 5 was so good it's hard to compare to it. Keeping that in mind, all of the social calculations and intuitive combat of Persona 3 will definitely scratch that same itch that the series is known for, and then some. 6. Daxter. The mid-2000s was a time when Ready at Dawn was killing it on the PSP. While many will remember their work on the handheld with the God of War games, Daxter was another one that they absolutely nailed. The game isn't separated from the main Jak and Daxter games, but does take place in a short time span between the first and second game, when Jak is imprisoned by the Crimson Guard. The game was received well when it was released, and it's easy to see why, with its solid combat, platforming, and entertaining dream sequences. This one also plays on the Vita, if you'd rather own it that way. 7. Secret Agent Clank. Have you ever played Ratchet & Clank and thought to yourself you'd really just like to play a game that's full of those puzzle-oriented Clank sections? Well, you don't quite get that in Secret Agent Clank, but you do get a game that's primarily starring him, where he has plenty of gadgets and weapons of his own at his disposal. Captain Qwark and Ratchet are both playable technically, but it's primarily Clank's game. So if you like the basic Ratchet & Clank formula but want more of the latter, you can't go wrong with this one. 8. God of War Ghost of Sparta. God of War had two PlayStation Portable games, and they're both absolutely worth owning, but Ghost of Sparta is easily the better of the two in basically every measurable way. The game runs incredibly smooth despite PS2 looking levels of detail and multiple enemies on screen much of the time. Keep in mind, this is an old-style God of War game that has almost nothing in common with the new one gameplay-wise, but for true old-school fans of the series, that shouldn't be a problem. The hack-and-slash gameplay and well-orchestrated linear level design that keeps you moving fits just right on the PSP. 9. Killzone Liberation. Unlike Ghost of Sparta, Killzone Liberation is a bit of a departure from the franchise it's a part of. This is a third-person, almost kind of isometric action game that takes place in that Killzone universe, and in the same era as the first and second games. The story builds on the events of the first game, with Vecta still mostly being controlled by the Helghast, and ISA forces continuing to try to push them back against insurmountable odds. Outside of that, the story is pretty thin, but the gameplay can almost be described as a shooter dungeon crawler with the loot-oriented gameplay loops it puts you in. It might not be for everybody, but if you're a fan of either the Killzone franchise or top-down action games, it's definitely worth a buy. 10. Resistance Retribution. Before Sony Bend started working on Uncharted Golden Abyss, they made Resistance Retribution. The story fits neatly between the first and second mainline games, and features a pretty similar look and feel aside from being a third-person shooter as opposed to the first-person perspective. You may hesitate to pick this one up knowing that the PSP has only one stick, but there's really no need to worry about it as this game was designed around that very well with a very generous cover system and easy-to-learn shooting mechanics that make it feel right at home on the PSP. Obviously, we could go on and on about more games on the PSP that you should get, but these are a great place to start. That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on Gaming Bolt.